This video is for you to understand why we took x-rays. We're going to have you understand that it's very necessary for us to have x-rays to be able to see what's going on in the body, so that we can see which bone is out of place, so we can determine how much damage is around that particular bone, how much nerve tissue is involved, and of course how long perhaps it may take for the body to be able to recover and overcome this problem. So as you look at this and you see that, if you look up here, you're going to see this bone moving in the neck, moving back and coming back on the spinal cord. And it'll have the same effect as if, in fact, we took a pair of pliers and squeezed on a rubber hose. You can see that the content coming through the hose would be reduced because we've compressed the hose. It's the same thing when the bone gets out of place. It squeezes on the nerve, therefore the nerve cannot conduct the message as it should from the brain into the body. When that happens, we have perhaps 70 trillion nerve fibers coming through from the base of the skull down through the first two bones of the neck. There are approximately 70 trillion tissue cells that make up your human body. All of your body composed of millions of trillions of cells. Each one of those cells has to be in communication with the brain. So we have the nerve system going down to tell the tissue cell what it needs or what it should do, in fact. And then the tissue cell is capable of sending a message back to the brain saying, I need this, I need that, or I'm in trouble, or whatever the case may be. The brain interprets that, sends another message down, and we have the tissue cell capable of changing its chemistry, changing its electricity, moving, excreting, secreting, doing whatever it takes for that cell to survive, because the message comes from the brain to the cell. Now, I want you to imagine this. If we were to press on the nerve significantly, because there's a bone out of place squeezing on it, and it came time after the cell called to the brain and told the brain it was in trouble, that it needed help, and the brain interpreted that and sent a message down that would allow that tissue cell to function normally, but the message doesn't get through. Then what happens to the tissue cell? Can it work? Does it work? Will it be able to heal itself? Can it excrete, secrete, change its chemistry, change its electricity? No, it can't do any of those things. So what happens? It becomes dysfunctional. Now, not only does it become dysfunctional, but as it's recreated or replicated on a continuum, that happens every minute, your body's exchanging tissue cells, approximately 1.5 million to 2.5 million per minute. Visualize this cell now being recreated as a sick cell, as an abnormal cell, a cell that won't work. Let's say it was in the liver, and it's a liver cell, and it's supposed to do a certain thing for a certain reason, for a specific proportion of keeping this body alive. Now it can't do that. It won't work, can't work, doesn't work. We have a dysfunctional cell which ultimately could affect the entire liver, which most certainly is going to affect the entire body. So we've got sickness and disease. We've got aches and pains. We've got joints that are painful. We've got buzzing in the ears. We've got headaches. We've got a multitude of symptoms, all coming from the dysfunction of the body. Our first inclination always is to go, hey, doctor, give me a pill for this. Give me a shot for this. Cut this out. Do something about it. Do something from the outside in to change my body. But that doesn't work. What works is that there is within all bodies, even babies just as they come out of the uterus, an intrinsic power, an intrinsic intelligence that's capable of running this body, is capable of healing this body of any disease known to man. And for us to be able to determine what's going on, why it's going on, we have to know what the spine looks like. So we take the x-rays. And as we see the x-ray distorted, as we see the bones out of place, as we see builds up, as we see the hole where the nerve comes from the spinal cord through a hole in the side of the vertebrae, in the side of the backbone, when that is closed, you can imagine what it's doing to the nerve. If it's squeezing on the nerve, then wherever that nerve is taking life to, how would you expect that part of the body to receive maximum life? Well, it can't, and it doesn't. And the fact is, as the body loses life, it recreates itself into something else. As it recreates itself into something else, you call that disease. Now, think about this. Look at the skin on your hand and perhaps on your arm. It's normal. Those tissue cells are normal. But what happens when we press on the nerve that's taking life from the brain to that part of the body? When that happens, these cells begin to function abnormally, begin to be recreated abnormally. You may call that psoriasis, you may call that eczema, you may call that alligator skin. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but here's a hand and a whole arm that's building itself completely abnormal. Why is that? Because the interference between the brain and that part of the body. because the cells are replacing themselves abnormally, because they're dysfunctional, and all as a result of the bone being out of alignment, squeezing on the brainstem. That's the whole ticket, and that's what I want you to understand. That's why we took these x-rays. And I want you to realize that as a result of the law that runs this body, when that law is violated because a bone that surrounds the brainstem and the spinal cord is significantly out of place, it's going to press on millions and trillions of fibers that's going to cause your body ultimately to dysfunction, ultimately to build itself sick, ultimately to have a great deal of problems. Now, what we need to do is be understanding and realize why we took the x-rays, what's going on when we look at the x-rays, and realize that the doctor has to have time. Either he or she must have the time to correct that bone. You don't do it in 1 visit or 2 visits or 10 visits. Depends on how long it's been there. If it's been there a long time, it may take 30 visits or 40 or 50 visits. Whatever it takes, we have to get the bone back into alignment. Whatever it takes, we have to get the bone off the nerve and let the pressure be relieved to allow the information from the brain back into the body, so that the body not only functions normally, but more importantly, recreates itself normally. So once again, this statement of what is health is not feeling good. What is health is having a body that has the potential to recreate itself with normal cells versus abnormal cells. Being able to function and have the potential to work exactly the way God designed this body to work. But once we interfere with that law, once we interfere with that function, once we interfere with the makings of this body, it loses its potential. It recreates itself sick. And then we're in serious trouble. So, it's much smarter to correct the problem now and wait till it gets worse. It's much smarter to do it now than wait until in the future when we are down on our back or hospitalized. So, take this seriously, understand it, and the doctor will be with you in a moment.